I've structured my talk today specifically for those of you who are here to try to debunk flat Earth, and we know you're here. Those of you who came here specifically for the purpose of debunking the flat Earth. And so I want to give you 12 helpful hints on how to go about doing so. Thus, I've titled my first part of this lecture, Debunking Flat Earth 101. Now, I should warn you up front, attempting to debunk flat Earth often leads to converting you into becoming a flat earther. So I'm giving you fair warning, especially with the first point that I'm going to present here. Point number 1, never forget, we used to be you. All right, fair warning. We all started out as skeptics. Every one of us. This is stupid. This is crazy. This is the 21st century, for crying out loud. Why are we talking about this? This was settled hundreds of years ago, right? How many of you started out that way? Yeah, pretty much everybody, right? We all had the same indoctrination you did. We went to the same schools. We read the same books. We've seen the same movies, television shows, and documentaries. We've all been to the same museums that you've been to. There's no question that you're going to ask that we haven't already asked ourselves. So it's not likely that you're going to stump us with some amazing new piece of evidence that we haven't already thoroughly considered ourselves. Now, I'll just say this. Many, but not all of us, come at this from a biblical perspective. Now, you may hear various presenters here during this conference that are and are not from that perspective. I do come from a biblical worldview, so I will present some things from that perspective, but not everybody's on the same page. So this is not a religious movement, even though many people who come into this understanding quickly realize there must be a creator. Yeah. It's been an interesting side effect. You know, I was in the Army and we used to say there are no atheists in foxholes. Well, there are no atheists in a terrarium either. Somebody built this thing. Number 2, none of us belong to the Flat Earth Society. Media, please take note of that. All right, we didn't run one day and say, boy, you know, I got to join some club or cult. You know, I want to join something where everybody's going to hate me and make fun of me and call me names for the rest of my life. Yeah, where do I sign up? You know, when we say, yeah, you know, I believe in enclosed world cosmology or flat Earth, immediately people, oh, you must belong to the Flat Earth Society. Well, that's like, you know, saying, hey, I'm a Christian. Oh, you must be Catholic. No. You know, me personally, I grew up Baptist, but there's tens of thousands of denominations to choose from. Now, if you're going to call yourself a Christian, hopefully we all agree that Yeshua, or Jesus Christ, if you prefer, is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through him. Regardless of your denomination, hopefully if you're calling yourself a Christian, you got that part right. But there's a lot of other things we clearly disagree on, right, within Christianity. Well, the same is true with this subject here. We don't all agree, and there are several different models to choose from. You may even hear some of those here during this conference. The one thing we do all agree on, though, is that the earth is not a spinning ball. And for the most part, I would say this is a leaderless movement of independent researchers. Now, there are some people who want to take credit. I started this movement and blah, blah, blah. They have their own ego to work out, you know, issues. But this is a leaderless movement. I mean, there's just people waking up all over the world just doing their own research. Therefore, you need to judge each of us on our own merits based on our own work. Don't judge me based on something Eric Dubay or Mark Sargent or Jaron Campanella or Bob Nodella or anybody else says. Likewise, don't judge them based on anything that I say, right? Judge each of us on the merits of our own work. Stop going to the Flat Earth Society and cherry-picking the most ridiculous claims they make and associating them with us as if that's what we believe. Most of us consider that website to be either controlled opposition or a joke. I can't tell you how many media news outlets, Christian and otherwise, that I've seen, the first thing they do is go to the Flat Earth Society and look for the most ridiculous thing they have on that website and then attach that to me or others. Don't do that. Relax, no one's fallen off the edge of anything. If it's flat, where are you going to fall off the edge? No. Look, just do a Google for the coastline of Antarctica. All right, most of us recognize that, at least in the model that we subscribe to, or a lot of us do anyway, that Antarctica forms the ice rim of the circle of the Earth. All right, so just do a Google for the coastline of Antarctica, and you'll see stuff like this: 100 to 200, 300 foot ice walls. No one's fallen off the edge of anything, so you can relax on that one. Okay, no one believes the upward floating disk theory of gravity. All right, this is important. Media, if there is anybody in the room from the media, please turn your attention up here. Stop what you're doing, look up here. You need to pay attention to this. Please do not put this in your presentation. Everybody watching, watch the screen. Do not put this in your presentation. We don't believe that. That's one of the stupid things you will find on the Flat Earth Society website. How many of you guys have seen news reports where they put, flat earthers believe that the Earth is going upwards at 9.8, whatever? How many of you have seen that, right? Don't do that. You know, if your goal is to try to make us look stupid, let me give you a hint. Our numbers are growing exponentially worldwide. I doubt yours are. So if you're going to try to make us look stupid by doing that, you're just going to prove how stupid you are. So I'm trying to help you out here, all right? Number 5, you guys don't know anything more about gravity than we do. So stop pretending that you do. And if you don't believe me, here's one of your experts saying just basically the same thing.
What is gravity?
You have no idea. Okay, next question.
Wow.
No, here's the difference. We can describe gravity. We can say what it does to other things. We can measure it, predict with it. But when you start asking, like, what it is, I don't know. We look out in the universe, and 85% of all the gravity that's out there has some mysterious unknown source. We add up all the stars, the galaxies, the planets, the comets, the black holes, the dark clouds, everything out there that we can see, touch, smell, or taste. And it doesn't add up to give us the gravity that we see operating in this universe. So really, we should be calling it the dark force, because we don't know if it's made of matter. It could be a profound misnomer, sending people off in thought directions that might not really be the right path. So dark matter is just simply what we call this thing about which we know nothing, responsible for 85% of the gravity of the cosmos. It is the longest standing unsolved problem in modern astrophysics. Dark matter, dark energy. Everything we know about the universe, what we're made of, galaxies, stars, planets, that's all right here. So according to this chart, we are 96% stupid.
Number 6, you can't just insert flat Earth into the Copernican model of the universe. All right? How many of you guys have seen memes like this on Facebook and whatnot, right? They're like, flat earthers be like, no, we don't believe that. You know, they're all doing their best Barney Rubble, right? Flat earthers, we don't believe that. You know, maybe there are a few people out there who do, but at least most of the speakers that I know here, we don't believe that the Earth is just the pancake and everything else is, you know, the same in the Copernican model. So stop using memes like that. Number 7, do at least some research into the founding of JPL, NASA, the Freemasons, Nazis, and all that good stuff, please. When you look into the founding of these organizations and look into like Project Paperclip and 1,600 Nazis being brought over, and they're being, you know, NASA's being ruled primarily by Freemasons. And then you got, you know, meanwhile, elsewhere, you got characters like this. Jack Parsons even made a TV series out of the guy, for crying out loud. He was a student of Aleister Crowley, the Beast, the most wicked man of the 20th century, who back in, I believe it was 1917, did ceremonial sex magic rituals called the Amalantra working. and supposedly ripped a veil in the, time-space dimension or whatever, and an entity came through, and he drew the picture of this entity. He called it Lamb. That just so happens to look curiously similar to the modern grays, alien grays of pop culture, which about, a few decades later, his student here, Jack Parsons, out there in the desert, I think if I remember right, it was actually in the region that later became known as Area 51. He was out there with L. Ron Hubbard, founder of Scientology, doing more ceremonial sex magic, the Babylon working, and shortly after that, we have, all the UFO lore and everything that came as a result of all of that. So I'm telling you, you need to look into the interesting partners of NASA. And it reminds me of the scriptures, 1 Corinthians 15:33. He says, "Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals." So when you have an organization run by occultists, Freemasons, and Nazis, what do you think the end result's going to be? And they also have some interesting affiliations with people like Arthur C. Clarke and, of course, Stanley Kubrick, which becomes very fascinating when we start looking into the Apollo missions. Let's move on here. Number 8, please, I'm begging you, learn what a fisheye lens is and what it does to images. Please. I can't tell you how many videos and pictures people send me, and they're trying to tell me I'm an idiot. You're such an idiot. Look, you'll get it. And they'll put out videos like this.
The Earth is round, and here's the proof. Remember Felix Baumgartner? He jumped from the edge of space a few years back to perform the highest parachute jump ever. Well, that was on a live feed in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and you can clearly see the Earth's curvature. So yes, there is tons of proof that Earth is a sphere.
So yes, there's tons of proof that I'm an idiot.
Dude, that was Planet New Mexico, for crying out loud. All right? The same curvature was visible 5 feet before his feet hit the ground. So if you're going to come at me, look at the curve. Sorry for that. It's cathartic for me to get that out every now and then. This is what these people send me all the time. They're trying to call me an idiot, and they're giving me that as their proof. Here's a little clue. If you see pictures like that, just complete the curve. Wow, look at that. Look how big Felix is. Jumping out over Planet New Mexico. I'm telling you, I had friends sending me stuff like this. This guy has a PhD, okay? He's sending me stuff with the footage from the Mythbusters, right? They supposedly went up in a spy plane, 75,000 feet or something, over planet San Francisco. And, he's like, look beyond the flat earth gurus and their false claims. He says, a fisheye lens doesn't curve things that much. I'm like, no, he's got the same curve over the back of his head, 50 feet off the runway. Right? How many of you guys got this stuff from your friends and family? Right? All over the place. Learn what a fisheye lens is, for crying out loud. You got websites like this, physics.org, you have smart people, lab coats, right? Cloak of credibility, PhDs, letters after your name. Right? Students film breathtaking curvature of the Earth using a high altitude weather balloon. You would have thought that the curved rope might have given them a clue. Something's wrong with this picture. Why did they just stop the video at 4 seconds in? Students prove curvature of the Earth, 15 feet. Seriously, learn what a fisheye lens is. Meanwhile, flat earthers and others are sending up high-altitude weather balloons that don't have fisheye lens attached to them, and we're coming back with images like this. It's interesting. I saw the movie First Man. Have you guys seen that movie? The Neil Armstrong movie just came out. Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. But in the opening sequence, he's in the X-15 jet there, doing a high altitude flight test. And I don't know if you guys caught this, but his altimeter was showing like 140,000 feet and climbing. And incidentally, he was flying in a jet with the tail number 66672. Rather interesting. But they actually depicted the horizon just like that at almost 200,000 feet. Interesting. Yeah. Number 9, please realize you don't have a working map or model either. Those of you in the globe can't. I mean, you could just go look into this. You guys got well over 200 projection maps. You say, well, yeah, of course, Rob, that's what happens when you try to take a spherical object and map it out on a 2D map. Well, that's not my problem. I don't believe the Earth's a ball. That's your problem. But you're coming at me and others and saying, well, show us a map, show us the model. Well, you don't have a map. You've had 2,500 years and you still don't have a map, right? We believe the Earth's a globe, says Pythagoras and Eratosthenes. Okay, great. You've had 2,500 years. You can't get a map right yet? And when it comes to the model that you guys believe, you got your own experts saying stuff like this. Usually in science, when we're off by a factor of 2 or a factor of 10, we call that horrible. We say something's wrong with the theory. We're off by a factor of 10. However, in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120th. That is a 1 with 120 zeros after it. This is the largest mismatch between theory and experiment in the history of science. Wow. Why don't you guys knock off at least 100 zeros and get back to us? Oh, we're off by 10 to the 20th power. Woo-hoo-hoo, great. Wonderful. You guys are coming at us. Show us a map, show us a model. You've had 2,500 years and $51 million a day for organizations like NASA, and you don't have a model right yet either.
You're not going to believe this. In science, we always say that you make observations, you have a theory, you go make more observations, and it's a very, very tedious process. Wrong. Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. Wrong. Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork. And
So if you don't have a map and you don't have a model that's accurate, how dare you come at us? We've had, what, 3 years and no money? And no resources? Give us a break. Number 10, like it or not, the Bible is a flat earth book from cover to cover. Thank you. I've covered this in depth, so I'm not going to go through that here. You can watch my presentation from last year or pretty much any of my videos online for that matter. But in summary, I would say from Genesis to Revelation, the earth is consistently described by Holy Spirit-inspired authors as fixed and not moving, spinning, orbiting, etc. Circular with edges, corners, pillars, foundations, etc. Under a dome within which the sun, moon, and stars were placed on day 4. Now, this is not thus saith the Lord. You will not find this in any Bible or anything like that. This is thus thinketh Rob in the King James. I'm an artist, okay, by trade. So as I'm reading through the text, this is my artist conceptualization of what I see. I don't claim this to be the actual what we're living in, but it's what makes sense to me when I read the text. This is what I see in my mind. And on the interior of that, you would have essentially the footstool of God. Now, whereas there is absolutely nothing in the Bible that supports any notion of this, Danny Faulkner, or anybody else in here from the creation ministry. Nothing in the Bible even remotely supports any notion of this. No, by the way, Scripture says concerning the moon, he said God created 2 great lights, not one great light and a reflective rock. So I bought this recently online on Amazon. Pretty cool, self-illuminating moon. Scientists and creationists and modern theologians disagree, right? Because the Chinese could figure it out and God can't. Self-illuminating moon with shadowed craters and everything. Pretty cool. Get it, $20 on Amazon.
Yeah, this is one that comes up a lot. Oh, people have circumnavigated the world going east or west. Well, so what? That's if north is your center on a disk, I mean, you're navigating the same way either way. So let's say you're on a ball and you want to go east. Well, you keep the compass heading north 90 degrees off to your left and you start walking. If you want to go west, you keep it 90 degrees off to your right and you keep walking. You're using the north to determine what is east and west. Well, same thing on a circle. Circumnavigation on a circle is exactly the same as circumnavigation on a ball.
I'm a visualization scientist. I basically try to come up with ways of explaining complex science stories through the visuals and developing artwork and illustrations that actually can help explain the science story to people.
For decades, popular culture and shows like Star Trek inspired a generation of scientists by envisioning what space might look like. But wait, what does space actually look like? Heart nebulas, celestial collisions, a bird's eye view of the Milky Way, astronomers are charting the outer reaches of the cosmos and bringing back jaw-dropping images from telescopes like Hubble and its infrared cousin Spitzer. If you look down at the bottom of that Milky Way image, you'll see these two words: artist concept. This sweeping image of the Orion Nebula actually looks like this. And the TRAPPIST-1 star system, the latest discovery of 7 potentially habitable exoplanets that made national headlines, it's really only a box of gray and white pixels. You see, space art is part of NASA, and it has been since before we went to the moon.
Just something to think about.
So is this just one more piece of space art? Good question. This picture was allegedly taken from Apollo 17, and it is by far the most powerful sphere of influence ever found in a single image, pun intended. But is it authentic? Well, first you have to determine if the Apollo programs were legitimate. If this is new to you, I'd suggest you watch these videos right here. Then spend a lot of time on the website aulis.com, AULIS.com, and look at all the evidence that is presented there, which more than suggests that the Apollo program was a fraud. Now, as a former NASA fanboy myself, I have to say that was a really hard pill to swallow. But over the last few years, I've become more than convinced that we never went to the moon. And this belief was only further solidified the more I began to analyze the pictures allegedly shot on the moon. I have to say, I don't think they counted on Photoshop. Because you can take these images into image processing software such as Photoshop, adjust the contrast, and see stuff like this. Strange masks and rectangular boxes around the Earth. I even found one on the Apollo 17 mission itself, right here on the NASA website, Scientists on the Moon. Click on this picture right here. Supposedly the same mission, same guys that took the picture of the most famous picture of our Earth. I'm going to do save image as, and let's see, Apollo Moon. Let's call it Apollo Moon 17. And I'm going to open that in Photoshop. Okay, I'm going to zoom in on the Earth. I'm going to go to Image, Adjust, Levels, and I'm going to bring the levels up. Uh-oh. Why is there a square box around the Earth allegedly taken from the scientists on the moon in Apollo 17? And people wonder why I don't trust NASA. That's why I don't trust NASA. I mean, they're always out there saying, you know, Rob, everybody's trying to show you stuff from space, and you keep rejecting it. This is why I reject it. These guys are liars. So, I mean, if we never went to the moon, then this picture is not real. Since then, they've put out many more what they call blue marble alleged photographs of our Earth. The problem is they're all vastly different. The continent sizes change from year to year. The colors change. There's no consistency. The most famous one of the blue marbles was the one done in 2002. But if you take it into Photoshop and start zooming in on it, you begin to see where clouds were replicated using the clone tool. I mean, even its creator, Rob Simmons, admits it is Photoshop, but it has to be. And when you look into time-lapse videos, it's just as bad, if not worse. Here's the one that got me questioning everything. You can check it out on the JPL website. Supposedly, it was shot from the Galileo space probe back in 1990. Well, I mean, the first thing that caught my attention was none of the clouds are moving. I could take my camera outside, point it up at the sky for an hour, speed it up in my computer, and see the clouds doing all kinds of stuff. But on that day back in 1990, this didn't happen anywhere in the world. And NASA and JPL are bad enough, but the stuff coming from other countries isn't any better. In 2008, this video was put out allegedly shot from a Japanese satellite. Besides looking pathetically amateur, where are all the stars? I mean, look, we get all these images from Hubble, right? space is full of stars, beautiful colors, nebula, stuff like that. Every time we watch a sci-fi movie, the planets are hanging there against the backdrop of zillions of stars. But when it comes to any alleged satellite imagery of our Earth, we never see any stars. Even HD footage like this, you can beef up the contrast and look. I mean, HD's got a lot of information. There's no information in this video for stars. I mean, it should look something like this, but it doesn't. Later, I saw this video from 2011. I think it's supposedly from a Russian satellite. And it also allegedly represents a real time lapse of one full day of the Earth. And when I compare this with the one from 1990, both again full day time lapses, the striking difference becomes obvious. I think what we're seeing here is merely the advancement in computer animation technology over the course of about 20 years. And here's an example of that technology. This is 100% CGI and admitted to be such. And then we have what I call the bozo Earth of 2015. And just like back in 1990, once again, the clouds aren't morphing. You can back it up, freeze frame it, go back and forth with it. You'll see the clouds aren't morphing, changing, or anything. They are just following the ball as it rolls around in a time-lapse animation. And don't even get me started on all the problems with this moon. I've got longer videos that deal with that. So if we put them all together, once again, when it comes to time-lapse videos, just like the still imagery, there's no consistency. Over and over and over again, I was finding doctored imagery and or stuff openly identified in the fine print as being a composite image or some form of CGI. The question is, why? Suffice to say, we simply cannot trust imagery from NASA or any other nation's space agency.
And if you think we're going to Mars, man, the pictures aren't any better. People out there finding pictures that are supposedly from the probe on Mars, right? And yet we find places on Earth that coincidentally look exactly the same when you take the red filter off. And well, yeah, we have discovered life on Mars. They got squirrels up there. People zooming in on the high resolution pictures and finding squirrels and stuff. Look up Devon Island. Jaron was the first one that I saw pointing this out. He did a video on it, and I went and looked it up myself. And you could go on Google Earth and check it out for yourself. What they're doing on Devon Island, they could just as easily pass for everything that they show us that is supposedly from Mars. Do you really believe that we have a remote-controlled doom buggy on Mars? I can barely get cell phone reception in here. We're like, with a little doom buggy on Mars? Wow. You think Elon Musk is your savior? Yeah. There's a lot of crazy, interesting things about Elon Musk. In fact, my friend Gons from the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel did a video just recently on what appears to be the Luciferian family ties to this guy, Illuminati and whatnot. Check it out if you haven't seen it. His Face Like the Sun is his YouTube channel. Look it up. It's a fairly recent upload that he did. And actually, I was talking with Nathan Roberts last night. We went out to eat, and he may talk about it later, met a guy who claims to be Elon Musk's nephew, and some of the stories he told him, wow. But perhaps the most interesting of all, how many of you have ever heard the name Elon before you heard of Elon Musk? Anybody? That's a weird name, right? I've never heard that name before. And yet, in the 1950s, Wernher von Braun wrote a fiction novel called Project Mars, A Technical Tale. In chapter 24, How Mars is Governed, it says the Martian government was directed by, I can't barely read that, 10 men, something like that. Anyway, it says the leader of them is Elon. The leader of the men on Mars in the government is a leader by the name of Elon, written in the 1950s. Maybe it's a coincidence, right?
These people are lying to us with our money. Tens of millions of dollars a day they're lying to us.
By the way, how much money is being spent on space? You should emblazon this in your head. Here it goes. This is the pie chart. $330 billion a year is spent on space.